Cachamaniacs.
GeoGearHeads.
Welcome to GeoGearHeads. This is Randomize 77. And Daryl, we've hit a milestone in our podcasting history that's easy for me to say, but apparently not for you. Wait, no, it goes the other way around.
I don't think it's easy for anyone to say.
We've hit year 8.
We have, and it's also enough regular episodes that you could listen to one every day for an entire leap year.
366.
Scary, isn't it? It was bad enough last week when we had enough for an entire year, but now you can go that extra day into the next year or just fill a whole leap year.
Ooh.
And we've been doing this for 7 full years, and we're starting our 8th year. And who knows how long we've been podcasting before that. So yeah, it's
at least a day.
At least.
But we are doing the Randomize show, which, you know, Chris is one of your favorites. And we brought in some special guests tonight. We're going to start with introduction of Wit's End. And you know, Jim, you last appeared on episode 249.
That was a few episodes ago.
It was. And it was Randomize L.
Okay.
It was our large edition.
What does that mean?
Come on, you don't know your Roman numerals?
I do. Joking. Your large edition.
Yeah, the large edition. We never actually call them what they are.
I know.
We had the extra large edition.
And that voice that you're hearing is my wife, Renee W25.
Hello. Can anyone see me? I'm waving. I don't know.
Well, the people on the audio show can't hear you.
No.
Or can't see you.
Can't see you.
They can't hear you.
Hear me.
They can't hear, yeah.
We've got your microphone turned off. It's okay. Say whatever you want.
Okay, perfect.
So yes, it's going to be a fun show for sure. And most of what we have tonight is going to be the feedback from people who wrote in. So let's kick it off with Mike D's email. Just to pass on a snippet of info I got from someone close to Garmin. I was saying that I was going to order a 66 to replace my 750, and that is a GPS map 66 versus an Oregon 750, I assume. It was indicated that the above will be launched at some future date and will include the InReach facility. Currently, I think the 66 can communicate via the InReach Mini to allow the subscription service. However, the 66i will communicate direct and will do away with the need for the Mini. This new unit has not been announced and no date was indicated. Still going for the 66 as I don't use the InReach. Thought you might be interested.
Oh, interesting. So the 66 isn't going to be replaced. They're going to introduce another model with the InReach capability built in.
That's the way that I understand it from this source close to Garmin, which, you know, we don't have any indication really as to whether they know what they're talking about or not. You know, a lot of these products are ones that will be floated. They'll go through the whole process of, you know, market research, figuring out if they can actually even get it through like the FCC, and then kill the product.
So once they get all that work to get it approved, then they'll kill it.
Right.
Okay.
Kind of like going through all that work to talk about all the InReach stuff and then says, well, I don't use InReach.
Right, exactly.
So
but it is an interesting thought. We do know one of our audience members got the InReach SE2, I believe it was, but the big InReach unit. And we hope to get some good feedback from them as to whether they think it's actually a good caching unit. But I like the idea of having that big, well, not giant, but, you know, big featured all-in-one unit that has the satellite communications. Because for anyone who doesn't understand what the InReach is, it's essentially just a satellite communication device.
Mm-hmm.
It's designed to interface with something like your phone, and you can send and receive messages. as well as like location and send for help if you get lost. So it's your personal locator beacon and everything. So having that all in one device, being able to send the messages is a pretty nice feature. And as much as I like the idea of having that mini, which gives you the one-touch, kind of like a Spot Messenger would, the one-touch SOS, I don't really like the idea of carrying yet another device. I have too many devices.
Well, and they don't have anything like this, where they have the satellite communication along with a GPS.
Well, they do with the InReach SE. The SE actually has the GPS functionality.
Oh.
I'd have to go back and double check that is actually the right one. But there is one model, and just one model last we checked, that did have the full functionality. But that was something that they started rolling out under Delorme, and then as the models grew older, they started updating and canceling some of them because, you know, we just don't have as much call for devices like that anymore.
Right. Okay, so the InReach SE or InReach Explorer Plus from Garmin, combining the Iridium satellite communication with the built-in GPS navigation.
Okay, so there's two different models.
Yeah, maybe.
Or
The
well,
InReach
actually,
Explorer.
I think the Explorer might have been discontinued. That might be what.
$449 on the website.
Oh, okay. So it still exists.
And the InReach SE is $399 on the website.
Yep.
And you know, the difference looks between yellow and orange.
That's probably the only difference.
The cases look identical. The only difference is,
well, I'm sure you get like the better screens, probably better processors, different maps, maybe even. You know, there's always some stuff. But GSM times 2 mentions in the chat that his understanding is the InReach models are not good for geocaching, which has kind of been my understanding as well. And Renee's showing me the models on her phone here, and they're kind of touting with the InReach Explorer Plus the topo maps. So that might be the difference, is you get the topo maps with the Plus, the Explorer Plus, and don't have that on the other.
Right.
And I would imagine if that's the case, it's also more storage on the Plus or the Explorer and that kind of stuff too.
Plus a built-in digital compass, barometric altimeter, and accelerometer, including with the Explorer Plus, to help you get and maintain accurate bearings on or off the beaten path. This episode's brought to you by Garmin.
Okay.
A spoon and a can opener and a corkscrew.
All right.
If you have that, you can have your can of beans and bottle of wine, and
there you go.
Everybody's happy.
Everybody's happy.
Sure. Let's move on to Scout Cacher that emailed. You talked about, or you talked in episode 361 about CGO and why we can't get an API key for, or why they can't get an API key for geocaching.com. And they had heard the problem is also because CGO provides interfaces to other geocaching platforms. For example, open caching for many countries. Mm-hmm. And HQ does not allow for other platforms. I don't know, guys. Have you had any experience with that?
No, but it would not surprise me. They said no, and they stopped them.
It could be, but I know I've used apps that have the API access that do support other platforms. I don't know if that's a change that happened or if there's exemptions for certain ones, but most of those other ones have gone fallow anyway.
Yeah,
so,
I was going to say there was one that did open caching US and geocaching.com, but I can't remember what it was.
Well, Cachesense actually did the open caching APIs, not the Garmin one, but other ones.
Right.
And I'm 90% sure it also did the open caching or the geocaching Australia
That geocaching in Australia is the one. Yeah, right.
And part of that was the developer was from Australia. So there you go.
Down under.
Yeah.
However, my CGO, I'm logged into geocaching and open caching US.
Sure, but you don't have the API access.
Yeah, I'll have that full.
So you're literally scraping the website to get the information.
So I don't know that they're wrong. I don't know that they're right. And being geocaching Australia did have some special exemptions for a while because they were kind of partnered.
Right.
And I don't.
Weren't they based off of geocaching.com code?
Yeah, I don't know that they were actually based off geocaching.com code, but I seem to remember that they had like an early API and were sharing cache data. But I don't think that's the case. I really don't know what that whole arrangement had been. I know there was a special arrangement. I know people have talked about it, but I don't know for sure what it was, and I don't want to sound like I do.
Talk about it anymore.
No
You just
more.
must go away quietly.
But yeah, I think those kind of relationships have expired. So I don't believe anything still exists of this special relationship they once had.
Like milk. It is expired.
Sure.
I thought you were going to say it was in a special relationship.
I don't especially have a special relationship with my milk, but
I was kind of afraid to hear where he was going with that. But
yes.
I just stuck with the expiration angle.
Whew.
Yikes. It's
Wow.
It's going to be a show for sure.
Sometimes I start off and I don't know where I'm going. I just
Hopefully you'll
walk
catch
around
up
and see where I end up. How bad can it be?
We have to stand by. Our research department, aka GSM times 2, is going to be putting in the chat CGO's explanation. So we'll get that in just a moment.
We need a drum roll.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
I was thinking like a ticker, you know. Dee, 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 dee.
This just in.
That's just in the chat. We're good to go with Les Nessman's helicopter, you know.
We're flying over to
yeah.
Oh, where is the lead developer for CGO now? Because I think it's still one, even though it's open source, it's one guy that's still taking the lead on it. And I want to say he's like Russian.
Well, everybody's in a hurry
these days, and especially when it comes to first defines, everyone's Russian.
Yeah, everyone.
All right, well, why don't we move on while we wait for GSM times 2, because he's probably tried to trim it down into the limited size of the YouTube chat. And Jim, why don't I give you the honors of reading the name that we shall not understand?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Who knows? It was an email that says, in show 365, I think that was recently since you talked about an episode a day for a year. You discussed adoption as an option to keep heirloom caches active. There's an issue with the current adoption system that makes this impossible. Ooh. If the person or organization receiving the adoption has multiple outstanding adoption offers from the same owner, they cannot select which offer to accept. He says, had this happened when I offered a local to take over ownership of some of his caches, and he misunderstood me and sent me adoption offers for all of his caches. I had to accept all offers in order and send his adoption offers for the ones I could not accept to transfer those back to him. This setup would not work when an organization is trying to adopt a specific cache they have been offered, as alternative organizations can at this time create and maintain specific accounts for each cache to adopt, which is a lot of work and coordination. It would be nice if Geocaching HQ allowed adoptees to select which cache they want to adopt from the list of caches offered to them that have not yet been accepted, instead of doing this in the order they were offered for adoption.
So I totally remember this problem. As soon as I got this email, I'm like, yeah, that doesn't work. So
your adoption is important to us. We're
That's
accepting them in an order that they were received.
Please stand by.
Well, and I've done a ton of trackable adoptions, and I've run into this very problem. So yes, I know it's a problem that we can't address. And yeah, Geocaching HQ needs to really get on something for this. Chris, I know you weren't on the show. Did you happen to dig into that at all?
I did
the paper
not.
or
No.
Yeah.
I did read through the paper, but I didn't listen to the show. So
yeah, it'd be nice to come up with some way to do the adoptions, automatically, electronically, without going through a lot of extra red tape. But at this point, it doesn't have anything going on. Hey, we do have the list from GSM times 2, and just to summarize it, the reason that CGO does not have the API access, according to CGO, comes down to the open source versus private key issue. So there we go. That is their official explanation.
Yeah.
Okay.
While geocaching or Groundspeak's API would fix some of our current problems, CGO would then force users to pay money to a corporation. That is not the open source spirit.
Yeah. So they're just going to scrape and scrape away. There's a lot of things that you can do by scraping instead. However, you're going against the terms of service, and Geocaching HQ can break that at any time.
They can, but they haven't. And I'm kind of surprised by that, to be honest.
Well, the word from, I want to say it was Jeremy, was they're aware of it. They're not actively trying to break it. They're not making sure it stays active, but they know there's a huge number of people using CGO. So for the time being, they're just letting it go and doing their best to improve the website without making huge changes that might break it. They won't promise that they're going to continue to do that, of course. But it's one of those, we have way too many people who want to use this, so we feel obligated to continue it. To continue to let it happen. And you think about it from their perspective, if they had to try to chase down everyone who had CGO, they're going to have a lot of people who all of a sudden are going to get very, very mad and swap their support teams for one. All right, Renee, you want to read the one from Cachesense?
Okay.
One of the best names in geocaching.
It is a nice name. After your last show, a question came to mind. Geocaching.com does not own the geocaches. With this knowledge, what risks do people who like to hide caches open themselves up to legally? I would assume it would be similar across the piece, but I'm in Canada, so I would be interested in some more specific news on any information that you've heard.
Well, the first thing is whomever is hiding the cache is responsible for making sure that it meets all of the requirements and legally and everything. You're not trespassing, because geocaching.com doesn't want to try to police that and can't try to test that even. They have areas they know that you can't place caches, and they will block them in those areas.
Right.
But they can't do anything.
They can't tell
globally because it's just too big. It's too much. And, we have all kinds of stupid cities that decide that, we have to make it illegal to do location-based gaming. That's...
And there's, 3 million caches now?
Yeah. That's a lot to pay attention to. So in Canada, are their rules different, or just really you have to figure out what their social,
Well, there are different laws in Canada than in the US and then in Germany and Australia and China. China, technically, you're not allowed to use a GPS.
At all?
Correct. Wow. GPSs are illegal because it's an American system. They have Baidu.
What's Baidu?
That's their version of GPS.
Okay. Baidu.
But I'm not sure that civilians are even allowed to use Baidu. However, they do have.
I thought it was on some of the new phones coming out.
Yes, it is. And a lot of that stuff has changed in the last like 5 years, even.
They can probably still
Canada.
Control what exactly you can do with it. I mean, if it's available on the phones, it's probably just not open access to do whatever whenever you want to.
Well, they're afraid of many things in China, and one of them is people actually having tools to figure out where they are. Information. I hate to say it this way,
they don't have Find
but
My iPhone.
the information is generally perceived to be bad by the Communist Party.
Okay.
In China. They have to control all the information it kind of reminds me of, and I'm probably going to annoy some people, but hopefully they don't listen to this podcast, because if you're a flat earther, how do you think GPSs work? But it's kind of like
they put up one of those metal fences like they use for the dog. I mean, the invisible fences like for the dog.
Yeah.
So you won't fall off.
The Earth
that must be how it works.
The Earth is obviously not flat, or the cats would have knocked everything off by now.
Excellent. I love
That's
that
a good one.
But foreigners are allowed to use GPS in China. So that's how
So we
caches
can go there and use it, but
exist.
Chinese people can't.
Yes, I think with an
Ask my
asterisk.
cousin about that.
Yeah, with an asterisk, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
They'll let you take in your GPS-enabled cell phone.
Okay.
Now, they don't want a separate GPS device, but if it's integrated into your cell phone, that's okay.
Yeah. Cuba doesn't allow GPSRs.
It's
Yeah, I
they
remember Land Monkeys had to cache by
Yeah.
paper or something. Yeah.
Yeah,
By
you
maps.
have to like print the maps and try to figure it out.
I said
And
that's
that-
because they eat too much ice cream in Cuba. Wasn't that what?
Oh, yeah. She's
And you
referring
print
to
a
the
directional arrow and just point it where you want to go, so you can
Right.
still follow the arrow.
yeah, nice. Mike Rose, way I heard it, just had a show on an ice cream place, a dairy in Cuba.
Yes, I just listened to that.
Yeah,
It was interesting.
Yeah, it had us going. We weren't sure.
Right
For
until
sure.
they said, what was the very last line before he said who it was? I'm like,
Well, and the
really?
way he's
Like,
talking about Castro, you don't think
it doesn't
that
sound
it
like
is.
Castro.
Yeah.
Till
It's like,
what
really?
did he say? Till he said something tropical. What did he say? He said something at the very end that I was like, is he talking about
I don't
Castro? It was just
remember.
really like,
I don't know, but I had figured it out a couple minutes before that, so
okay.
it didn't come quite a shock to me, that one. But
Going back to the laws, Wet Coaster is saying that different cities in Canada have the different rules for cache placement, and that's kind of what we were referring to. And all that Cachesaurus said that he could come up with was the trespassing concerns, but there are more concerns than that. Like what is in the cache and whether it's suitable. There's liabilities that, as a corporation, geocaching.com simply can't take on. So, it's mostly speculation, of course, but
Right.
there's so many things that are kind of, I don't want to say obvious, but seem like they're logical reasons.
Mhm.
And I would imagine there's plenty more that we can't even think of. But I do suspect some of that might go back to safe harbor laws. But I would think at this point, because of all of the reviewing and the land manager requests to block certain areas, they probably would not be eligible for safe harbor because they're no longer a passive posting site. They actually actively curate it. So they would not fall into the safe harbor regulations. So they would be responsible. And a lot of that safe harbor stuff doesn't really pan out anyway. So we will assume that the safe harbor isn't valid. But I think that's probably one of the considerations when they came up with it.
I was just
Bounce likes fake bomb caches, but Cachesaurus says, yeah, sure, no fake bomb caches.
I was just gonna say, because at my now I call it my former job as of today. Today was my last day there. We did a what do you call it?
I'm not sure what you call it.
Something suspicious package training. And what someone did was the package was like one of those the pot of gold boxes of candy right before Christmas, and removed the candy and put the fake bomb inside and placed it outside of the reception area. Candy in the reception area, that doesn't seem like such a suspicious thing. It was really well placed.
How long was it there?
Well, he had it there, so I think people saw it as they were coming in the morning and before the receptionist got there. So probably for about half an hour.
It was there for 3 weeks.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
No, because people would have thought it was chocolate. It wouldn't have lasted that long. It was just that it was early in the morning. People might not have been ready for it yet.
We have one of those employees.
Yes.
Yeah. If there's chocolate, pretzels. Well, actually, she doesn't eat the pretzels, but
Does she
Just suck the chocolate off the pretzels.
the fruit leather.
Ew.
The
Fruit leather? That stuff is so disgusting. The fruit
like
roll-ups.
nuts, the bars, the potato chips. She just has at it.
Oh, so she loves your new
She
company.
loves. Yeah, she loves the.
They supply them with snacks, lots of
and
them.
she just bounces off the walls constantly. It's fun to
great.
watch.
Who's this one?
Fruit leather is like, fruit roadkill.
Yeah. Let's just smush it up together. No one will notice it. No one will be able to really identify it. I think this is
She's one of these
fruit-like.
I want to say mid-20s ish, when you still have high metabolism and can constantly eat and
Tolerance for
I'm
sugar.
kind of jealous.
Jealous.
I'm kind of jealous of her as well.
You're not
I would be
20
jealous
anymore?
of her
I'm
too.
only 29. I don't know about you. That silly reunion thing they asked me to plan. I don't know what they're talking about.
GSM times 2 says there's also some release of liability when people are participating in activity with known dangers, like attending a baseball game.
True.
Have you ever read the back of a ticket to a
Uh-huh.
professional sporting event?
Well, and I was just going to say, have you seen the terms of service for geocaching.com? There's a bunch of that in there. However, again, some of that is limited by your jurisdiction. There are limits in Michigan as to what your liabilities are, for instance. And like the slip and fall thing, if you are made aware and fix the problem within 24 hours, you can't be held liable for it.
Does that include like ice and your
Yes.
and that the
You have
walkway in
24
front of your
hours to clear
house?
it. Yeah.
Or vanilla ice.
Right.
If you can correct him within 24 hours.
No,
that's not possible.
Vanilla
It's like way
ice,
too
if
many
you
years.
submit anyone to vanilla ice, your time limit is way over for that.
Yeah.
But in other places, there is no
Tolerance
of that. If you have an unsafe, condition, as long as someone's not doing something they shouldn't be doing, like, breaking into your house. But even that,
they're breaking into your house, they slip and fall out of the window because it was ice.
well, you hear all of these stories about burglars who break in, twist their ankle, and then sue. And that's not just in the U.S.
Really?
No.
Yeah. I
That's
remember one in like
ridiculous.
Sweden or something a couple of years ago.
That's almost
like,
as
really?
good as putting
They're
coffee
that
in
stupid?
between your legs and getting burnt and suing the restaurant.
Well, the coffee was just too hot.
Yes.
That's how you wanted it.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know.
Wet Coaster wants to know if there's an attribute for fake bomb, and it's called archive.
Cachesense is a newspaper attribute.
Okay, I'm not even going to read bounce, but that's pretty funny. Cachesaurus says that bomb caches, you get the newspaper attribute, perhaps. Yeah, I don't think so.
The News at 6 attribute.
Okay, where's Bounce located? Let's try that one.
Oh, Bounce is in Washington.
He's
local.
Okay.
Yeah, he's local to those guys, and we have to go out there just to do bounce caches.
Absolutely.
Oh, yes, you do.
Yes.
Which at one point, bounce, we've got to get you on the show.
He's on right now.
No, like on this side of the screen, not that side of the screen.
Oh,
This side
sorry.
in Michigan?
Not that side. This side. Yes.
The side in Michigan.
Yes.
Not the side in where he's at?
Right.
Okay. Or in that side where he's at. Down under.
Down under.
Well,
what
he's
is
underneath
there
us.
except here with T?
We are getting so slap happy. Sorry, folks. Hopefully you're at least enjoying it. All right, Chris, you want to read Subway Mark?
No.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
He'll be on in a couple of weeks anyway, so
we can save
Okay.
it for then.
Let's see if I can get through this. Okay. Subway Mark sends an email. He says, I was in Hong Kong in early December for a short vacation. I was able to rent a portable Wi-Fi 4G hotspot for $2.22 US per day. I used it for 4 days, so it cost just under $10 for the trip. Much cheaper than the $10 per day per phone using international data roaming. They said it would last about 6 hours on a charge, but it lasted much longer than that. And since it was charged via USB, I was able to charge it with the battery packs I also use for my phone. It was reliable, and the cool thing is I would leave it in my camera backpack. But both my wife's phone and my phone had no problem getting access to it. It worked even underground on the MTR subway. That's the Mark Transit rails. I did use it to geocache as well with Hong Kong's tall buildings. My Garmin GPS Map 62 SC was pretty much useless. So the phone with a hotspot was much better.
Well, thank you very much for that, Subway Mark. And you'll be on in a couple of weeks to talk about that. So mark the calendars for episode 368 if you have questions.
What should the rest of us do if Mark is doing the calendars?
Well, he has to mark the calendars for everyone.
Okay.
Mark.
He has to
so
Subway
that
mark
everyone
the
knows.
calendars.
Mark is
Subway
going to be
Mark.
on your calendar.
Oh, he has to Subway mark the calendars.
It hasn't snowed enough here yet, so just no. Yellow snow, no. Subway marks. That's how the subways were in France. I don't know about anywhere else.
Okay. Anyway,
I'm tired.
If you have any questions about that or, tips and tricks that you want to ask Subway Mark, make sure to get that in for episode 368, which is just 2 weeks away.
Wow.
But yeah, I'm
Really?
jealous
Just 2
for
weeks?
just 2 weeks. This is 366.
Did you just
That's
say you're jealous?
I'm jealous of him because I want to go to Hong Kong and go caching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In episode 368, that's like the extra long leap year, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's the metric leap year.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. The jokes aren't going to get better.
Nope.
Let's move on to the last subject that we're going to cover in the regular show tonight. Then we move to the patron show. And this, frankly, it's old, but we felt we should mention it and chat a little bit about it, which is the Adventure Lab app that came out from Groundspeak, which they still have Groundspeak listed as a developer for the geocaching and this new app. I was kind of surprised by that.
I had to say that a couple of times because I'm so used now when I see Groundspeak, I'm just changing it to geocaching.com because that's how they're trying to rebrand everything.
Right.
But it actually says Groundspeak Inc.
Yep.
Groundspeak Inc.
I'm
Russian.
I'm assuming that they aren't changing the name because that's still their legal name.
Yeah. And
they have to keep it for the apps. But that was kind of a shocker when I saw that. Because I just don't pay attention to the App Store's name. It's, here's the link to that. And then, oh, wait a minute. This new app that I'm downloading has a different name. Is this legit?
Probably not.
Surprise. But they did mention it on the official podcast. So I'm assuming that if it's mentioned on the official podcast, then it is legitimate.
If it's listed, it must be.
I could be wrong. RockShock might be messing with us.
Well, and RockShock, and he would be. But I have downloaded it.
I would figure if he's messing with us, it would just be the monkey. It'd be a personal thing against the monkey.
There is something weird going on there. Yeah,
there is. Either that or it's a personal thing against Ben. But that I figured they'd keep in the office.
Well, there is a personal thing against Ben as well. Yes.
Right. Well,
Jamie is okay, but Ben is not.
Yeah.
Right. And how many of us have that love-hate relationship with our bosses, right?
Or co-host.
Our co-host, apparently.
I'm not saying which ones. There's multiple.
Especially when they keep interrupting you when you're talking about downloading an app.
What?
So yes, you did download the app. So did I. But what was your thought on it aside from I can't do anything with it yet?
Well, there are several geo tours and lab caches that are permanent here in the state of Washington. And some that, of course I knew, some locations, and others I was like, really? There's a lab cache there? Huh. But I think it's a great tool because it's relatively difficult to do a series of lab caches at a mega event.
Yeah, I totally agree. I like where they're going with this. I haven't had a chance to try it, but it made me aware of lab caches, just even as that directory tool. And it's so much nicer than doing the website.
Mm-hmm.
So
I never like navigating with the website.
No, I was just going to say that you can do an awful lot with the web tools, but it's just so cumbersome. And you have, especially at the mega events, you're sitting there hitting reload half the time to get the page to even work. I don't think this is necessarily going to be any better because it still has to rely on that data connection. However, I do hope it's not going to be as heavy on the data usage because it's just downloading the lab cache info through the API.
Right.
I assume. We haven't actually tried it yet.
Oh.
He
was staring.
Jim, have you had any experience with this at all?
I've not.
Even downloading it?
I've not even downloaded the app, but I did go to the Google Play Store while we were looking at it here to look at downloading it, and I found it interesting that it has a rating of 2 out of 5 stars. So hopefully that's not representative of the more.
Sure. Well, and that's on the Android App Store. I haven't looked at the iOS App Store, but I do wonder because this is kind of a soft launch. They haven't made it really known, aside from mentioning it on their show, that, as far as I know, that it's out there, and I don't recall seeing any updates. So I think it is, let's see what works and what doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
And with the Android apps, a lot of times they do experience problems with certain devices and carriers.
Yeah.
Like we had a ton of trouble at the event on New Year's Day this time.
Oh, it was
with people who got totally different things out of CGO because they can't do
not enough ratings.
Oh, not enough ratings on the iOS
on
App
the
Store.
iOS Store, yeah.
But you get totally different problems depending on the phone and the carrier, because the phone and the carrier that sold it to you has so much control over it that things like zip files weren't working on them some.
And it was really weird because you sent it to me and I had 380 right away, no problem. I sent it to Angie and it wouldn't open. I sent it to Ray and he had 270 something. And he sent it to Angie and she had 300. The same file.
Well, yeah, that's a different problem entirely. That's GSAC. They created the file in GSAC and didn't have anything to sanitize the file. So it had bad characters that when certain tools hit it, just stop.
Oh.
So whatever that last cache was that loaded.
Was that still the one that won't, the one that won't send?
No, the one that won't send, we don't know what's going on. I haven't had a chance to look at that.
Okay. You should have been here for New Year's Day. It was fun.
Yeah. I'm looking at Cachesource, getting back to the Adventure Lab cache, says their podcast referred to it as a soft launch, and when they pop it on the blog, it will be considered official. Thank you.
So once
I couldn't remember
blog popping.
Blog popping?
Once they pop it on the blog.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Blog popping.
Yeah,
we call it blopping in the industry, but I didn't want to go there.
A lot of people are talking about this Adventure Lab app as being a way to prevent the armchair finders. And Bounce actually mentioned that in the chat. And I think that that's kind of a side effect, but I don't think that they're looking to block people with GPSRs from doing it, because they still have quite a few people who are GPSR only.
I don't see how this can stop armchair finders, because you could still get the list of phrases or passcodes or
and
words.
Do it on the website. Yeah.
And do it in the app.
No, the app is apparently requiring you to be within a certain range of the location to do it.
I don't have my phone down here. I just realized, so I can't look.
Yeah, and I think I even tried going in and it wouldn't let me in because I have to be closer to the lab cache to actually even go to it.
Yeah, I just loaded it while we're talking, pulled it up. So the closest lab cache is 27 miles north of me. And when I pull up the first one, there's a padlock that says "Get closer."
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Cachesense also wanted to know if they can use it to make their own lab caches, say at a local non-mega event.
9.
No. But you know what? No.
Oh, how many languages did you say that in? 3?
I just thought just one.
I heard English, French, and Spanish.
Just thank you for that. Wasn't it on your show though, your other show, Caching in the Northwest, that Brian hinted that they are working on something that might allow for lab caches for the rest of us? Or was that maybe on the podcast, on their official podcast?
I don't remember him saying that. I haven't listened to the official podcast yet. It's still on that queue.
Well, it might not have been Brian that said it if it was on the official one, because I'm not sure he was on that podcast. But I seem to remember someone talking with Brian on either your show or on the official show, and he led to something. He mentioned something that kind of led me to believe he was talking about lab caches. He didn't specifically say lab caches. He didn't specifically say anything because it was something that they were talking about internally. So I don't really know. Brian was talking about schools using it.
Okay.
Lab caches. Yeah. And he mentioned schools in the classroom. I don't think you could fit a
classrooms
school
in schools.
How would you use it in classrooms?
Oh, you can do all kinds of stuff with teaching navigation, setting up cool lessons where you have to go. One of the things that I wanted to do with
good math.
Well, yeah, people use geocaching and math all the time. But one of the things that I wanted to do was set up the Where It Goes to do history lessons. Think about doing something like that tailored to your lesson plan for history going around a historic museum.
That's pretty cool.
And you can do a whole bunch of cool stuff. So there's all kinds of great applications. How is that different than a multi? Well, you're talking about stuff that could be media rich, which you can't necessarily do. And it's tailored for just you. This is also what we were talking about with the AR caches and why that's so cool. Because if you get into the AR, not necessarily as a geocache, but you get into the AR for like a school kid and think about how much more you could teach a group of kids at a historic museum now than you could a few years ago, especially with all of these kids being so much more into their phones now.
Right. We're going on a field trip and you can use your phones.
Yeah.
I can use my phone? You're going to let me?
To do what we want you to do, but yes. No Snapchat.
No. But I've heard of people doing like Snapchat lessons where you have to go, it's like a scavenger hunt.
Oh, yeah.
With Snapchat, Instagram, whatever.
That's true.
So there's that kind of stuff that some of the educators are doing as well to really kind of bring the tools that the kids already know how to use and like into the classroom and get them more interested.
There are several polling apps or platforms. You know, it could even be on Twitter that I know the teachers in our school use. You know, let's take a poll. You know, 2 + 2 equals. Okay, it may be more
22.
Yeah.
5 for large values of 2.
Yeah, which way are we rounding? Okay.
That's right.
I'm very well rounded.
I think for the safety of our audience, we need to wrap up this show.
Oh.
But
Safety.
we
All about
will
safety.
actually subject our patrons to more of this. So patrons, stay tuned. Before we wrap up this show, I do want to thank Jim for joining us again.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
And of course, everyone can catch Jim and Chris on their other show. Or is this the other show? I think this is the other one, because there is only caching in the Northwest.
Oh,
Thank you.
It's older than geocaching or GeoGearHeads, right?
Yes, I believe it is.
Even though you haven't done as many episodes. Haha.
It's all about quality, not quantity.
Oh, well, we don't have quality either. So anyway,
We have a
thanks
monkey,
again.
though.
Yeah, well, and the monkey is worth so much more,
Yeah.
always.
Well, on the
including
open market.
including a lot more harassment from Rock Chalk.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
And thank you to Renee for showing up as well.
Thank you.
And I guess we'll call it from the Daryl and Renee's, or Renee and Daryl's Walt Disney World honeymoon,
That
our
was my,
vlog that we do
right.
with our little pins. I'm going to
Okay.
show the pin.
Oh, we have.
There. That's our logo.
Oh, nice. Where
Much
did you
like
guys
our path
decide
tag.
where to take pictures?
Yeah, that
did.
was this week's show
I haven't had a chance to listen.
or watch, because it's a vlog,
It's a vlog. You can see us.
It's true.
which is
so
a reason
vloggy.
to not watch.
Yeah.
That's why we don't have as many.
But imagine this.
subscribers
Sometimes we
as
get
do
off
for this show.
topic. I'm
What?
What? No.
Renee, that's why you're on the show.
That's why I'm on the show, to get off topic.
To bring him back
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
from the edge.
To rein me in. There is no solution for that. All right. So let's get out of here for the randomized show, or for the patron show, because
It's time.
it's about time that we got to do that. So thanks again, patrons. Stay with us for that bonus show where we're going to talk about things like the global positioning satellites that have changed. Believe it or not, they changed. And thanks to all of our patrons, including like Crosswind Cache Crew, who recently signed on as a patron. And that's the crew that does that Crosswinds Marsh event
Oh, cool.
that we really want to go to, and hopefully we can
We've
see
been
them on
talking
the
about
show.
that for a while.
Yeah, well, and they're going to hopefully come on the show to talk about working with the Crosswinds Marshland
Oh.
managers and do some
Excellent.
discussion about how they have to do all of that with that giant series, because that's a big park. It's a it's just cool. We'll talk about it later. But before we go, Cachesaurus asked where he can see the vlog we do, and that's a YouTube link that's very bizarre. So I'll put it in the show notes. But if you check the Daryl W4
Not any more bizarre
Twitter
than the show.
account, there's links in there too.
Yes.
Well, no, the link is bizarre.
Oh, it is bizarre.
Yeah, it is weird. So I'll just put it in the show notes for anyone who wants to check that out.
Just search YouTube for bizarre link. You'll find it right away.
Oh, yeah. That'll pop right into the top.
No, that doesn't work. I wish it did, but no.
Well, next week we are going to talk about puzzles with Jim
Not me.
of the Waysiders. And of course, Going Caching, the Going Caching mega events. I bet they'll be giga soon. And then the week after that, episode 368, we've already given you a hint. If you were listening closely, we're talking about road caching with Subway Mark.
So check the Cachemaniacs website at cachemaniacs.com for more on the GeoGearHeads, including show notes for this and all of our episodes. We love hearing from our listeners, so leave us feedback by emailing geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com or through social media. Your support helps keep the Cachemaniacs shows coming. Please consider becoming a patron through the link on the website to support the Cachemaniacs shows. GeoGearHeads is produced by Chris Fanauer and Daryl Wanberg. This show is copyright 2019 by Daryl Wanberg. All rights reserved.
maniacs.